From the eyes of Dada, a presidential guard. That night didn't feel different at first. I had been working the night shift for almost 6 months at the presidential villa in Ouagadougou. It's not the most powerful position, I don't carry the heavy weapons or lead any team, but I have a very important job. I monitor the gates, check guest entry logs, and help ensure the safety of the compound at night. That evening started slow. The air was cool. The lights across the main road outside the compound flickered like usual. I was seated in my small booth near Gate 3, where I had a clear view of the east wing, the small access road, and the second fence. President Ibrahim Traoré had returned a little after 11:30 p.m. from a late security meeting. I saw his convoy roll in. No sirens, no noise. Just 3 black vehicles, his usual escort. He always waves when he passes, calm, warm, no drama. That night, he did the same. He smiled and nodded at us. Nothing felt off. We relaxed. Around 12:40 a.m., I noticed something strange. A black SUV drove slowly up to the side entrance, not the official path, not the main security gate, but the back service road. That route is not for night traffic. No vehicle comes from there without approval. I checked my list. No car was scheduled. I called Gate 2 to check if they allowed any last-minute visitors. They said no. I radioed Gate 1. They said nothing came through on that end either. I became alert. I stood up and moved closer to the side cameras. I zoomed in and saw 3 men inside the vehicle. One of them was in some kind of military gear, but not our military. The other 2 wore black clothes, gloves, and caps. No badges. No name tags. No sign of belonging to any official security group. That was the first warning in my heart. I picked up my small radio and whispered to command post. Control, do you copy? Unlisted black SUV heading East Access Road. Do we have clearance for this movement? No response. I asked again. Still silence. Suddenly, the black SUV passed through the service gate. I stood up sharply. That gate should have been locked. No movement is allowed there without my officer's key card. Someone from inside had opened it. My heart started beating fast. At that moment, Sergeant Malik walked past my post. I quickly stopped him. Sergeant, did you open the back gate for that black SUV? He gave me a strange look, then smiled. Dada, you ask too many questions. Go and drink water. Not every vehicle needs your attention. He patted my shoulder and walked away. I stood still. My hands were sweating. Sergeant Malik wasn't just anyone. He was trusted. He was respected. But that smile, it was wrong. It didn't reach his eyes. It was the smile of someone hiding something. I looked back at the monitor. The SUV had now parked behind the East Service building, close to where laundry staff usually operate during the day. That place should have been empty at night. But the men didn't hesitate. They stepped out. 2 of them carried what I recognized as suppressed weapons, guns with silencers. One held a small black bag. He opened it quickly and pulled out something that looked like a folded floor plan. I watched, frozen. This was no delivery. No visitor. No inspection. This was a planned operation. I reached under my desk and pressed the emergency soft signal. It's a silent alarm that alerts the internal response unit without making noise. I didn't shout. I didn't run. I just stayed low and prayed. Then I saw something that gave me chills. One of the guards at the east fence, a man named Joel, walked up to the SUV casually. He greeted the men like old friends. He shook hands with them and laughed. He was part of it. My mouth went dry. What was happening wasn't random. This was an inside job. And now, these men were less than 100 meters from the president's private quarters. I called the crisis response office, but the line buzzed. Still no reply. Either the line was jammed or someone disabled the system. I felt alone. But I also knew I couldn't just watch. I grabbed my emergency flashlight and tapped it 3 times toward the patrol soldier, a young man named Private Issa, who was doing rounds near the kitchen path. He saw the light, looked at me, then turned his head and caught sight of the SUV and the 3 armed men moving toward the east wing. I saw him pause, then he made a decision. He raised his rifle and shouted with full force. "Intruders! Stop there!" And that was when everything exploded. Gunfire. Movement. Sirens. The quiet night was no longer quiet. Something big had begun, and I had no idea if our president would live to see the sunrise. When Private Issa shouted that word, "Intruders," it broke the silence like thunder. At first, it didn't feel real. I watched from the security booth, staring at the camera screen like it was a film. But this was no film. It was our country's future at stake. The 3 men near the black SUV didn't freeze. They moved fast, like soldiers trained for dirty missions. 2 of them dropped into position, raised their silenced rifles, and fired. The sound was low, like a pop. Not like the loud gunfire we're used to. 1 bullet hit Issa in the leg. He fell, but even on the ground, he kept shouting. "They're armed. Stop them." That bravery shook me. He was bleeding, but he refused to stay silent. I pressed the second alarm, level red, which activates the internal lockdown. The compound began to seal automatically. Emergency lights turned red. Sirens inside the halls began to buzz. Guards near the north wing rushed in. I saw Corporal Aminu, a tough soldier who once served in Mali, run toward Issa and pull him to cover. 2 others opened fire toward the attackers. The firefight had begun. But it was not an equal fight. The attackers were trained, too trained. They moved with purpose. One of them used a small black device to jam signals. We later learned it was a signal disruptor, used to block radios and cameras. That meant they didn't come to scare, they came to kill. And their target was 1 man, President Ibrahim Traoré. Meanwhile, the president's guards moved him toward the secure bunker room, a protected area built for emergencies. But then something happened that surprised even us. President Traoré refused to stay hidden. I heard it through the radio channel that still worked on our local net. His voice came clearly. "No bunker. Bring me my boots and my rifle. I lead from the front, not from under the table." It was real. Within minutes, he stepped out into the corridor, wearing simple military boots and a jacket. He took a weapon from one of the guards. His eyes were calm, but sharp, like fire under control. When some of us begged him to stay back, he replied, "I was not born to rule in fear. If I die tonight, let it be with honor. But I will not hide while foreign mercenaries walk through my house." That gave all of us courage. Even those who were afraid found strength. Meanwhile, one of the attackers was trying to climb the side wall to escape. He shot at a camera and tried to break through a side window. But one of our guards caught him before he could flee. They fought hand to hand, close combat. The attacker stabbed our man in the arm, but he held on. Backup came and they brought the attacker down. Only one of the 3 survived, the one with the black bag. He vanished in the dark, possibly through the service tunnel. We believe he had help from inside. Because when we searched the compound later, we found that some security cameras had been turned off manually, not by the attackers, but by someone who had access codes. And only 2 or 3 people have that level of access. That's when we remembered Sergeant Malik. He had disappeared during the chaos. It didn't take long to find him. He was near the east gate, trying to open the exit using an override keycard. When 2 guards stopped him, he told them he was chasing a suspect. But the lie fell apart quickly. We searched his room the next morning. We found foreign currency, a satellite phone, and a small notebook with coordinates, names, and coded language. His betrayal was clear. He had been working with foreign agents. They had promised him money, a new life in Europe, maybe even a promotion in another force. All he had to do was open the gate and stay quiet. He agreed. But what they didn't know was that not every Burkina soldier is for sale. That night, we lost 2 guards. One is still in the hospital. But the mission failed. The foreign plot was stopped. And the president? He didn't leave the compound. He stayed all night, checking on the wounded, thanking every man who stood his ground. He hugged Private Issa, who was still in pain, and said, "You shouted when silence would have been easier. Because of you, I am alive." By morning, the villa was quiet again, but the air felt different. Heavy. We all knew what had just happened. It was not just an attack on a leader. It was an attack on Burkina Faso's freedom. Foreign hands wanted Traoré gone. Because he chased them from our land. Because he took our gold back. Because he said no to puppet deals and backdoor control. They thought they could do it in the dark. But we were watching. And God was awake. By the time the sun began to rise over Ouagadougou, the villa was quiet again. But it wasn't the same kind of quiet we knew the day before. This was the silence that comes after war, even if the war lasted only one night. We gathered near the southern compound, away from where the attack happened. Some were wounded. Others were just tired. Most of us hadn't even removed our boots. We just sat on the ground, drinking water, trying to understand what had happened. There was a lot of shock. But more than shock, there was anger. Not just because 3 armed men tried to kill the president. Not just because 2 of our fellow guards were dead. But because someone we trusted, Sergeant Malik, was part of it. That truth hurt the most. Many of us had trained under Malik. He was not just a senior officer, he was one of the most respected in our section. He told us stories. He brought us food when we were broke. Some called him uncle. But in the end, he sold all of us for money and foreign promises. When the internal team questioned him, he didn't speak much. He asked for a lawyer. But the evidence spoke louder than him. They found over $50,000 in foreign currency in a hidden drawer in his quarters. There were coded messages on his satellite phone. Some messages were traced back to foreign numbers in Paris, and others in Abidjan. He had been communicating with outsiders who didn't want Ibrahim Traoré in power. Their plan was simple but deadly. Create confusion. Slip in 3 trained agents. Take out the president. Make it look like an inside job or robbery gone wrong. Then the media would do the rest. Security collapse in Burkina Faso. Time for international intervention. We knew the script. We've seen it happen in other African countries. But they failed. Why? Because one guard, me, just Dada, noticed something small. Because one soldier, Private Issa, shouted even when he was afraid. Because one leader, Traoré, refused to run or hide. That's what saved us. Later that day, the president gathered everyone in the main courtyard. It wasn't a speech for cameras. No press. No microphones. Just his voice and our ears. He stood in front of us, his jacket still dusty, his eyes tired, but his heart strong. He said, "Last night, they came not just for me. They came for all of us. For this country. They came because we said Burkina Faso is not for sale. They came because we said our gold belongs to our people. Our future will be built with African hands, not foreign chains." He paused and looked around. They sent money. They sent promises. They found weak men. But they did not find fear. There was silence. Not because we were unsure, but because we were proud. So proud, we didn't know what to say. Then he walked over to Private Issa, who was sitting in a wheelchair, his leg bandaged. He bent down and placed a small medal in his palm. The highest honor we give to soldiers who act in bravery. You didn't wait for orders. You shouted when you saw evil. You are the reason I am standing here." Issa cried. We all clapped. That moment stayed in my heart like fire. Because I knew then, this fight was not over. The plot had failed, but the foreign hands would try again. They would send more money. More lies. More traitors. But now, we were no longer blind. We knew the price of freedom is not just guns. It is watching, speaking, and standing firm, even when it's dark. From that day, the president ordered a full review of all personnel. New systems. Tighter security. And most of all, loyalty must be earned, not worn like a uniform. I still work the night shift. But I don't feel small anymore. I know now that every gatekeeper can stop an enemy. I know that one voice can save a country. And I know that when leaders like Traoré stand strong, the people will rise with them. They tried to kill him. They tried to break us. But Burkina Faso is still standing. And we are watching. Always.